Hey, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. That's right, 2 live streams in a row. I'm really trying this new type of content. I know that maybe some of you, this might not be a good time, but I've made sure that this video is recorded. So let's say you wake up tomorrow and you're looking for a Nano Dimensions update. This is your video. Now, this is really a new type of content. I wanted to do a sort of quickish live stream to cover Nano Dimensions because it's been quite a while since I've made an update. Now, everything I say right now and going forward is not going to be financial advice. I'm just going to show you my process and exactly what I'm doing. So let me first start by explaining what Nano Dimensions is. It's a 3D printing stock that was one of the YouTube darlings back in 2020. In fact, it was probably my best performing stock in 2020. I kind of missed it with all the green. Like you can see here, we just saw it rocket all the way up to around $18 per share. Now, I first got into Nano Dimensions around $3. I think I bought it in sometime around here on this pump. This is a month. This is a weekly candle, right? I rode that pump all the way to like $4 or $5. Now, what happened was Nano Dimensions was one of those stocks that had repeated share dilutions. So what that meant was the CEO, Yoav Stern at the time, what he did was he would just sell shares onto the market to certain entities and it would reduce the price. Because the way you should look at this is, let's say you have 100,000 shares, each worth, I don't know, let's say $10. Then you have $1 million of equity. Now, instead of 10,000 shares, let's say you had 100, or instead of 100,000 shares, let's say you had 1,000,000 shares, then every share is worth $1. This is why the price comes down. Now, creating a share dilution, if you keep buying stocks like this, you're going to be down at the truck stop. Potentially, that's maybe your opinion. I'm going to kind of explain why I'm talking about this because I have a lot of people asking me about this stock. And while you're welcome to your opinion, I'm making this video for those who continue to ask me. And I know that, right now is not a time where we can expect any stock to go up. I'm going to be point blank. I don't expect Nano Dimensions to go up in the short term. And I'll explain kind of my thesis there too. Okay. So back in 2020, kind of the stock history was every time the stock would pump, Yoav Stern would issue shares. He would lock in that liquidity, and then the stock would sell off in response to share dilution. This happened like 12 or 13 times. Now, I was buying the shares when it dipped and selling them on the announcement of the share dilution. And I was making, maybe I think I made like $8,000 or $9,000 from that. I think it was something like that in 2020, which was phenomenal. Now, there were some really bad people out there. There's a guy named Richard. I forget his last name. He was out there talking about Nano Dimensions to $100. And this is the problem. Whenever you're in a bull market, you have these frauds, these people who go on YouTube who just make these ridiculous claims and lie to people and say the stocks are going to the moon. They said AMC is going to $100,000. AMC is $4. I sold AMC at $72 per share. I remember telling everyone, sell your AMC, or sorry, not sell your AMC because not financial advice, but I'm selling my AMC. Take that for what you will. And people call me an idiot saying it was going to gamma squeeze. Well, those same people are down like 70 to 80% on the AMC position. Just like this, it's not popular to talk about Nano Dimensions right now. And guess what? I'm talking about it because I'm not doing this for views. I'm doing this because I think it's the right thing to do, and I want to share my opinion around it. You can call me an idiot. You can ignore it. You can do whatever you want. Now, while it was my best performer in 2020, in 2021, along with other small cap stocks, Nano Dimensions sold off. Nano Dimensions, Bionanogenomics, Zomedica, a ton of small cap stocks sold off in 2021 as people rotated to like large cap stocks like Apple, like Nvidia, like AMD. Those are the stocks that did well in 2021. So you can see this strict decline that's happening all the way from $18 to $251. So you're probably wondering, why am I here talking about Nano Dimensions? That ship is sailed, right? The problem is, when it comes to stocks, People love to jump into it when it's at all-time highs, and then they want to sell at the bottom. I try to do the opposite. I'm looking for underappreciated, undervalued stock, undervalued shares. And yes, while I did have 600 shares with a cost average of $11, which was absolutely brutal, I bought another 900 shares around $2 a share recently. So I'm up a tiny bit on that because right now we're sitting at 251. So I'm up like 450. Of course, I'm down like maybe five grand, I think 4 or 5 grand overall in Nano Dimensions in what I hold. However, I made like 8 or 9 thousand in 2020, right? So like I'm not worried about it right now. All the stocks are down for the most part. Now here's what's really cool. Yoav Stern, I think, is an absolute genius because if he didn't do what he did, which was issue a share dilution every time the stock pumped, this stock or this company would be in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of zombie companies out there that only exist because they were borrowing capital to survive. The cost of borrowing capital continues to increase with the interest rates, right? So there's no longer free money just going around. Nano Dimensions is not one of those companies. In fact, they have like $1 billion in cash on their balance sheet currently. The last time we got an update, I believe that was in the Q3 earnings report. They actually mentioned, let me look for it over here. I think it's below down here. Yeah. So they had $1 billion of cash as of September 30th, 2022, compared to $1.4 billion as of December 31st, 2021. Now, the $300,000 that they kind of used, that was used on operating and investing activities. However, what's really cool and what you should notice and take really good note of this, shareholders' equity, I'm going to make this bigger. It is $1.2 billion. What that means is that is what the company is worth right now to the market if you were to liquidate everything, right? Shareholders' equity is equal to your total assets minus your total liabilities, okay? Arthur, I am in my mid-30s. Yeah, so completely right. If you don't like the business, then that's not a good investment for you. I have a friend, his name's Andy. He doesn't like Apple. Now, I think Apple is one of the best companies on the stock market. But if you don't like the business and you don't believe in it, you should never invest in it because even when it's doing well, you're like, I think it's a shit company. So completely agree with you. I would never invest in something that I don't believe in, right? Now, Nano Dimensions thesis right now, yes, they have really good 3D printing equipment. Now, I know people in this space and they told me, this is kind of, their technology is okay. It's not amazing. What they do have going for them in the short term is if I go to Nano Dimensions stock and I look it up, their market cap sits at $646 million, right? So the market cap is equal to the number of shares outstanding times the share price. We know that their shareholders' equity is like $1.2 billion. What that means is this stock, the stock price is half of what it should be at a minimum, right? So I expect this stock at some point to be $5 US. Am I saying that I think it's going to happen tomorrow, next month, 3 months from now? Of course not. In fact, I think these stocks have a risk of going down even further. And the reason for that is we expect the Fed to continue to raise interest rates, right? While that's happening, risk on behavior is completely off. While the risk on behavior is completely off, people are going to save cash because cash is king, put their money in stuff like gold, and they're going to avoid speculative investments. Nano Dimensions is a speculative investment. I would not put more than 20% of any investments in my portfolio combined into speculation. 20% is my cap. So my Zomedica, Bionanogenomics, Nano Dimensions, my crypto, all of that is under 20%. I would never put more than that because this is money that I'm telling myself I'm okay losing. Where I put my real funds are in blue chip big companies like Apple, like Microsoft. But everyone knows that, and I invest in index funds as well. But everyone knows that, and no one needs to hear about it. The reason I'm doing this video is people want to know about Nano Dimensions. Now, Nano Dimensions did have some news because they recently had some sort of smear campaign happen. So let me just zoom this in so people can read this. Okay. So this was posted in December, on December 14th. Make sure you guys can see it. And they talk about from 2020 to 2021, they raised $1.5 billion of capital. I've already gone through this. This was primarily done through the share offerings that Yoav Stern initiated every time the stock was on a pumping trajectory. Now, we're not surprised to see that 2023 is expected to be a difficult year. Every company is going to struggle. In fact, now that the elections are over, we're hearing a lot more about recession talk, but a lot of us already knew that we were entering into a recession. Now, they talk about the trust that Nano Dimensions has won from investors. Yes, it was a unique vision. Proven leadership. I think Yoav Stern kind of did show that with his share offerings. I think that's all that they've done. Nano Dimensions as a company has lost money quarter over quarter, right? The last quarter in Q3, they lost like $67 million. And their primary focus is making the company profitable. They don't care about the share price. They just want to make the company profitable so that they can reduce their expenses, increase their revenues, and stop posting net losses, right? So what happened recently was there was a sort of smear campaign, right? And what they believe is that their capital, those $1.2 billion in shareholders' equity, has become a target for entities who are interested in taking over the company for their business or for personal needs. Now, just like I said, right? If someone went and bought every single share of Nano Dimensions, they could sell the company for $1.2 billion worth of equity, right? That's what all the assets are worth book value wise. That's kind of how it works, right? Once you pay off all the loans and everything they have on the balance sheet, you're left with $1.2 billion. Now, if you can buy that for $600 million, you just made 100% return. But imagine if you can do that while you are sitting here and reducing that even further. Maybe you buy it for 300,000. That's right, 300 million, right? So this is kind of why they have that fear that there's some sort of FUD spreading mechanism. I hate the FUD term because people use FUD to kind of discount any sort of critical concern. I truly believe that we need to be critical about every single thing we invest in, right? Just like I said, I don't think Nano Dimensions is going to skyrocket in the next few months. There is a potential, however, that if a company announces that they're going to buy the company, that stock might rise because of that. That typically happens a lot. So the management team said they're aware of this and they're going to protect the company from any harm, to impose measures that are not in the best of the company and its shareholders, right? So they expect that there may be further attempts to interrupt the company's conduct of business with the intention of inhibiting the company's ability to execute on its vision and strategy, right? So they had a general meeting of shareholders back on December 13th, and the results of that meeting are reported, online if you guys want to read it. So they expect that because when that meeting was called, there was a shocking smear campaign designed to harm the company and its managers, right? And they think it's a preemptive tactic to kind of get that takeover of Nano Dimensions assets by a small entity. Now, this is all like speculation and we don't know, right? So, I will leave that to you to judge. What we have seen in the past, not with Nano Dimensions, but with other companies, is typically you'll see like some sort of big rumor spread or a so-called short report on a company where all this negative stuff is said. And then you find out after that the individual or entity that put that report together has a vested interest in the stock going down because they opened a massive short position. This, I think, should be illegal. Obviously, I have no say in any of this, but you shouldn't be able to kind of give facts or try to make a case for something and then have a vested interest to have your stuff being biased, right? I think that, the company is obviously going to say positive things. Now, not all of them are positive. They're going to embellish on a lot. And those who have a short position will say negative things, or those who want to take it over at a cheap price will say negative things. I also think they embellish. I think the sweet spot somewhere in the middle is where you really find the truth. But in the short term, none of that matters to me because I am looking to accumulate shares during this time. I'm not going to buy any at $2.50. I'm waiting for the stock to drop below $1.50 if I'm going to buy more shares. I currently sit with 1,500 shares. That's more than enough for me, right? I don't think that there's any sort of rush to go out there and purchase Nano Dimensions right now. I know some people here will hate me for saying that, but I'm not here to play into the hopium. I'm here to kind of give my honest opinion. I think we're like 3 to 6 months away before we even get close to a semblance of a market bottom. And because of that, and today we saw somewhat of a stock rally, not in Nano Dimensions, but in the general tech sector. A lot, like my portfolio was up like maybe 4 or 5% overall with the big stocks. Nano Dimensions was kind of flat today, right? That being said, you still have a lot of time if you want to accumulate Nano Dimensions. And I don't think that it's going to pop off anytime soon. So for me, I'm sitting there and waiting for the stock to maybe drop below $1.50 because I already have my 1,500 shares. If the stock rockets, perfect. I will sell my shares on the way up. I'm not stupid. I'm always taking profits, and I always encourage those to consider taking profits when you can do so, because this is a really tough market. Making money in a bear market is so challenging. And obviously, I recommend that you have a strategy that works best for you. Now, that's all I want to talk about in this video for the most part. Maybe I'll end with one last thing, which is, with the exception of this smear campaign and this report, there isn't really that much to report on from Nano Dimensions. We see here that they received an order, that they sold some Dragonfly 4 devices, and also sold some Precision 3D Fabrica 2.0 systems. I think that, while they have some decent technology, they have $1 billion of cash on hand. Do what Zomedica does or has done. Do what a lot of other companies have done and look to spend that cash to acquire something that will add significant value and have a value proposition to Nano Dimension and its stakeholders, instead of just sitting on cash. Because if they don't change anything, every single time they're going to end up burning cash on operating expenses without actually making value for the shareholders. And if they do that long enough and I don't see a change in trajectory, at that point, I will jump ship from Nano Dimensions. I'm going to give them about a year. That gives them potentially about $300 million to burn if they follow the same trajectory. I'm hoping to see that number reduce earning report after earning report. If I don't see that, if I don't see them change the shift of the company like I've seen with Zomedica, then I will jump ship. But of course, we got to assess it kind of on a happens basis, right? So we're still a year out from doing that. We really have to see how this company is going to perform. All I'm seeing is a bunch of notices of orders, but once again, these orders aren't enough to sustain the company. So we need to see more orders and potentially a really cool acquisition. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to keep it short to about 20 minutes, which is like 5 times more than it would have been if I sat there and scripted the video and edited it. But here, I'm able to kind of open up all these browsers like 20 minutes before, put together like a bunch of things I want to talk about, and then just talk to the camera. And by doing that, I'm able to make these videos for you even sooner. So if you like this kind of content and you want me to continue with live streams, and potentially if you want live streams on certain stocks, just post that in the comments below, and I'll try to do longer live streams where I cover multiple stocks, and then maybe we can have more people show up. And I'll also try to have a dedicated time so it's not in the middle of the night, so people can show up live versus having to watch it later. That being said, I hope you press the like button if you can, share the video with people you know, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you have a good night, and I hope the stock market rallies tomorrow. Thanks.